backing out of the previously agreed upon ABC presidential debate that was set to take place on September the 10th. But, and you may have been confused by this in the last 24 hours, in classic Trumpian fashion, he's pretending that it's Harris who doesn't want to debate. Until this weekend, Trump had refused to say whether he'd show up on September 10th after Harris replaced Biden at the top of the ticket. Now he says he will not participate in that September 10th debate, but adds that Harris will surely not debate him on September 4th in Pennsylvania on Fox News, an event that was not previously agreed upon or scheduled, and in fact, one he seems to have invented himself on his social media platform. Among the reasons Trump says Harris won't debate him, quote, "There's no way she can justify her years-long fight to stop the words Merry Christmas. I'll see her on September 4th. Or I won't see her at all," end quote. Now, Trump has resurrected this decades-old war on Christmas trope multiple times during a belligerent Truth Social posting spree, which began during a flight delay on his way to Atlanta yesterday. His first stop was a roundtable discussion with black business people. Notably, he didn't question their race when he falsely questioned Kamala Harris's racial identity multiple times during an appearance at the annual convention of the National Association of Black Journalists a few days earlier. After the roundtable, Trump went to a rally. And I want to play you a little bit of what he said. I want to acknowledge that sometimes you don't like it when we play Donald Trump stuff because it's full of lies and nonsense. But we do need to hear this. We're not playing this for entertainment. We all need to be aware of what the man who could be the next president is saying and how he's conducting himself. For instance, he still doesn't know Kamala Harris's name.
Kamala, there's about 19 different ways of saying it. She only likes 3. She wants the government to stop people from eating red meat. She wants to get rid of your cows. No more cows. She doesn't want anybody saying Merry Christmas. Now she's denying it. Hillary got Bruce Springsteen, I'll never forget. And the place was pretty full. Not full like our places are full. And I don't have a guitar. Atlanta is like a killing field. You go to the store, I want to buy a loaf of bread, darling. You come back, ma'am, I'm sorry, but your husband's been killed. If Kamala wins, it will be crime, chaos, and death all across our country. A lot are coming from the Congo, from prisons. Where do you come from? The Congo. Oh, what's your address? We live in prison. What did you do? Murder. Oh. And then he got hit on the knee with something. I think it was a hand grenade that didn't go off. Remember him with the shaved head? Ding, 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 shaved his head. How do I look? Great. Then he goes down, a hand grenade hits him. How do I look, darling? Oh, you look great.
That last riff was about my getting hit by a rubber bullet in Minneapolis on May 30th, 2022, although he's got my network wrong again, and this time I was hit not by a rubber bullet or a tear gas canister, as he said in the past, but by a grenade. In addition to an extreme amount of nonsense, which lasted more than 90 minutes and also included Trump saying that the Georgia University administration was to blame for the arena not being filled because he's still preoccupied with crowd size, and mentioning Hillary Clinton by name 8 times, Trump endlessly repeated false election fraud claims and went after both Georgia's Republican governor and Secretary of State by name. There's an argument to be made that despite the hatred and the vitriol and the endless lies and the dizzying amount of digressions, that everyone really should watch one of these hour-plus diatribes. Democracy may depend on it.
Vice President, in terms of the election, does not have any impact. I mean, virtually no impact. You have 2 or 3 days where there's a lot of commotion as to who, like you're having it on the Democrat side, who it's going to be. And then that dies down, and it's all about the presidential pick.
Donald Trump last week making the argument that the second name on the presidential ticket, the vice presidential pick, doesn't actually matter, that it will have no effect whatsoever on either campaign. Well, according to an ABC News Ipsos poll taken at the end of July, Donald Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, is the first VP nominee to have a net negative favorability coming right out of his party's convention. Perhaps that sour taste could have something to do with all of this.
There's something comparable, between abortion and slavery.
This is one of the great tricks that I think the sexual revolution pulled on the American populace, which is this idea that these marriages were fundamentally, they were maybe even violent, but certainly they were unhappy. And so getting rid of them and making it easier for people to shift spouses like they change their underwear, that's going to make people happier in the long term.
I certainly would like abortion to be illegal nationally. Let's say Roe versus Wade is overruled.
And then, every day, George Soros sends a 747 to Columbus to load up disproportionately black women to get them to go have abortions in California. And of course, the left will celebrate this as a victory for diversity.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made. And so they want to make the rest of the country miserable, too.
Now, the public is first seeing J.D. Vance for who he is and what he believes. But the thing is, all of those unsavory remarks came out before he was ever picked to run alongside Trump. It was no secret. The Trump campaign should have known of Vance's propensity to say racist, sexist stuff. But they proceeded without caution. And now Trump's running mate is historically unpopular and has been labeled as just plain weird. Now, over the course of American history, presidential candidates have switched their running mates prior to the election just 5 times. In 1864, President Abraham Lincoln swapped his vice president for the Democrat Andrew Johnson. Remember, Lincoln was a Republican. In 1872 and 1896, Presidents Ulysses Grant and Benjamin Harrison both swapped their existing vice presidents out when they ran for second terms. That didn't happen again for almost 50 years when in 1940, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt swapped his VP out for his third run for the presidency. When Roosevelt ran for a 4th time in 1944, he again swapped his VP out, this time for the Missouri Senator Harry Truman, who would ultimately step in as president after Roosevelt's death. But those switches all happened before the party's convention. As we know, the Republican National Convention has come and gone, and the party officially nominated Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to the Republican ticket. So let's just say, hypothetically, Trump decided that he and Vance weren't actually a match made in heaven. Trump could technically still choose a new running mate as long as it happens before state filing deadlines to be on the ballot. Each state's deadline is different, but the earliest deadlines fall at the beginning of September. And it wouldn't be as simple as Trump handpicking someone new and then all of a sudden the lawn signs change. According to the Republican National Committee's rules adopted in 2020, a vacancy of the Republican presidential nominee or their running mate may be filled by the RNC, or the RNC could reconvene a national convention to vote for a replacement. But maybe none of this matters because, as Trump said himself last week, the role of vice president doesn't matter. The other name on the ticket is irrelevant. But the choice for vice president does matter when you're dealing with someone like J.D. Vance, who prioritizes the MAGA movement over the pillars of democracy and is the embodiment of Project 2025. The choice for vice president mattered on January 6, 2021, when Vice President Mike Pence refused orders from the president and ultimately did his job and certified the results of the 2020 presidential election. Things could have ended much differently on January 6th were it not for Mike Pence. That day, the will of the American people was in the hands of the vice president. Keep that in mind when you're voting for an entire ticket this fall. Choose wisely.
Old, weak.
Many don't feel he is fit.
Sick, tired.
Too old to serve.
Stammering, slurring.
He was ranting and raving.
Slipping, forgetting.
And the guy just kept getting confused.
Slow.
Panic has certainly set in.
You know which politician we're talking about, right? Oh, you thought it was about Joe Biden?
Venezuela, it's unbelievable.
Is he all right?
Let's think about some more words. Liar.
I have absolutely no idea who this woman is.
Criminal. Rapist.
I'm here because Donald Trump raped me.
Scammer.
I can say very clearly President Trump is a liar.
Con man. Gross. Vain.
I don't care about you, I just want your vote.
Cruel.
You are a rude, terrible person.
Disgusting. Creep. You know exactly who we're talking about.
You won't have to vote anymore.
Don't you?
What I was basically saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris,
Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it? I just wanted to ask that question and propose that maybe if we want a healthy ruling class in this country, we should invest more, we should vote more, we should support more people who actually have kids, because those are the people who ultimately have a more direct stake in the future of this country. And these people recognize that they're unhappy. They live in one-bedroom apartments in New York City. They've played their entire lives to win a status game. They're obsessed with their jobs. They're obsessed with their wealth and with their fortunes. And they look at middle America, people who are actually pretty happy with their lives and the choices that they've made, and they hate normal Americans for choosing family over these ridiculous D.C. and New York status games. When somebody calls out that, look, if you're a miserable cat lady, you should not force your misery on the rest of the country, they just get really upset about it. You know this, Tucker. The most miserable people in the mainstream media are these mediocre journalists who have their entire sense of self-worth wrapped up in their crappy jobs instead of in their families. People who know where they came from, people who go home at night and see the face of a smiling kid, whatever their profession, I think they're happier, I think they're healthier, and they're going to be better prepared to actually lead this country.
Grab him by the pussy.
By Voicey.network.
Believe in common sense gun violence laws. Vice President Harris' idea of freedom is a ticket for education to be that ticket to the middle class, not crippling debt. Air that's clean, water that's pure, communities that are safe. A place where we settle our political differences not through violence, but with our votes. And that's what this election's about. What direction will this country go in? He's not going back. Well, Donald Trump would damn sure take us backwards. Let's be clear about that. And don't believe him when he plays dumb. He knows exactly what Project 2025 will do to restrict our freedoms. To rig the economy to help the super rich. If Trump gets a chance to return, he's going to pick up exactly where he left off 4 years ago. Only this time, it will be much, much worse. Raising costs on middle-class family. He will repeal the Affordable Care Act, no doubt about it. He'll gut Social Security and Medicare. And when somebody tells you they believe him. He said he'd ban abortion across this country, and he'll do it, whether or not Congress is there or not. Donald Trump's not fighting for you or your family. He never sat at that kitchen table like the one I grew up at, wondering how we were going to pay the bills. He sat at his country club up in Mar-a-Lago, wondering how he can cut taxes for his rich friends. And I got to tell you, his running mate shares his dangerous and backward agenda for this country. J.D. Vance literally wrote the foreword for the architect of the Project 2025 agenda. Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires, and then wrote a bestseller trashing that community. Come on! That's not what middle America is. And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, you see what I did there? I got to tell you, pointing out just an observation of mine that I made. I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see. So you know what's out there, so say it with me. We aren't going back. We aren't going back. We are not going back. So we got 91 days. My God, that's easy. We'll sleep when we're dead. Over those next 91 days and every day in the White House, I'll have Vice President Harris's back. Every single day. And we'll have yours. You know how this works. We can't do it alone. We need you, each and every one of you. Go over to KamalaHarris.com, get on board, because we need you. Freedom to make our own choices. This leader, this compassionate, careful, joyous leader believes in each and every one of you. My God, you came here tonight to sit at the very top because you love this country and you're not going back. She believes in the opportunity for every single person to join the middle class. She believes in the promise of America. We just got to fight. We just got to fight. Because as soon-to-be President Harris says, when we fight, we win. Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you, Vice President.